This is a story about the most important, yet most overlooked concept in global power. It's the reason why some nations rise while others fall. It's the key to understanding why wealth and power are so unevenly distributed across the world. Every year, more people are starting to ask whether America is in decline. Maybe it's out of fear, maybe it's out of hope. But what none of them are talking about is the one thing that truly matters, the land beneath our feet. In a world so chaotic, so diverse, and so spread out, geography is the ultimate constraint on what a country can and can't do. Why is China doing what it's doing? Why hasn't Africa caught up? Why is there always conflict in certain places? This video is brought to you by Farmland LP. Every feature of land can either be a blessing, a curse, or neutral for the country that occupies it. Take the massive flat plains from Moscow to Warsaw, a region that's been more of a curse for Russia than a blessing. It's a vulnerable stretch of land, so exposed that throughout history, enemy armies have marched right through it. Napoleon did, and it's why Russia has always struggled with its borders. Then there's the Himalayas, which stand like an ancient wall on China's western border. While they offer some protection, they also cut China off from direct access to the Indian Ocean, severely limiting trade and military options. The land can be both a blessing and a curse. But then, you look at the Mississippi River Basin, the lifeblood of the United States. With more navigable river miles than the rest of the world combined, it gives the U.S. a huge surplus of food and a cheap way to transport it. This land, in many ways, is the key to why the U.S. has been so successful. Look at the landscape of the world through this lens, and everything starts to make sense. The distribution of power across the globe is less random than we think. Let's play a game of civilization. The first known humans evolved from Southeast Africa, and as they spread across the world, they settled in the 6 cradles of civilization: the Olmec in Mexico, the Incas in Peru, the Nile in Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley in India, and the Yellow River in China. But among them, one of these ancient societies did far better than the rest, and the outcome was largely determined by the features of the land they settled on. So, if you were to start a civilization, where would you want to settle? First, food is critical. Without food, your population can't grow. Fresh water is next to something reliable and plentiful. And then, a natural barrier to protect you from invading armies would be a bonus. For those of you who picked Egypt, congratulations. You've won the jackpot. You've just inherited the Nile River, one of the most strategic pieces of land in history. Why? Let me tell you. The Nile was the most stable river civilization ever. First, it had the best river, the most reliable, with floods that didn't kill your people every year. It made food easy to grow. Second, its flat terrain made transportation a breeze. Goods moved easily from Upper Egypt down to the coast. And third, the deserts on either side of the Nile created a natural defense against invading armies. No one wanted to march through that vast desert. Egypt, with its fertile river, was protected, and it lasted for over 3,000 years. But all great things come to an end. The fall of Egypt started a global shuffle, one that would lead to the shifting of power across the world. As the world's population grew from 200 million in the year 0 to 500 million by 1500, the pressure to expand and conquer new lands intensified. Kingdoms warred with one another. Europe, China, Japan, Africa, they were all caught in constant cycles of conflict. By 1800, the world's population had hit 1 billion. By 1945, it reached 3 billion. Then, something changed. America struck gold. But it wasn't just gold in the traditional sense. No, America had won the jackpot, the geography lottery. America became the envy of the world, stretching from coast to coast, with one of the best pieces of land in the world. And when the Louisiana Purchase was made, it sealed America's future as a superpower. The land was so fertile, so valuable, that it's almost impossible to overstate its worth. The U.S. paid $340 million for it in today's money. But how much is it worth now? I'd argue it's worth at least $60 trillion, maybe more. That's a staggering 17 million % return on investment. The Louisiana Purchase gave America control over one of the most important natural resources in the world, the Mississippi River Basin. It's the best farmland the world has ever seen, and it's connected by miles of navigable rivers. But more than that, it's got a direct connection to the Gulf of Mexico, giving the U.S. an outlet to the world's oceans. This geographical advantage was key to the U.S. rising as a global power, pushing out Spain and connecting the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, securing an unbreakable defense. But what about other nations? Let's talk about China. China is landlocked on all sides. It has access to just one ocean, the Pacific. But even that access is limited by countries that don't always have China's best interests at heart, like Taiwan, Japan, and the Philippines. For most of China's history, its trade routes have been vulnerable. China has spent billions trying to find a way to secure access to the Indian Ocean, a second gateway to global trade. Now, let's turn to Africa. Africa, the second largest continent in the world, has immense natural resource wealth, but it's cursed by geography. The Congo River is one of the longest rivers on Earth, yet it's almost impossible to navigate. The river's path is littered with rapids, standing waves, and whirlpools that have defeated every explorer who has tried to chart it. The Congo's natural barrier to trade has left the interior of Africa disconnected from the world. The coastlines of Africa are smooth, lacking the jagged natural harbors that make trade easy. And the ocean currents near Africa create constant challenges for keeping ports open, deep, and navigable. Africa, despite its vast resources, has struggled to become a global superpower because it lacks the geography to support trade. Now, let's look at Russia. Russia sits between two crushing geographic puzzles. First, there's the flatness of its land, which allows enemy armies to march right up to Moscow, as we saw with Napoleon. And even if Russia controls all of its land, it still lacks access to multiple deep-water ports. Its only warm-water port is on the Black Sea, but to reach the Atlantic, Russia either has to go through the Baltic Sea or the Mediterranean, both of which are heavily guarded by hostile countries. That's why Russia has long sought to control the Middle East. It's all about access to warm-water ports and securing its access to trade routes. Finally, let's talk about England. England was once the global superpower because of its geography. Being an island nation with easy access to the ocean, it controlled trade routes and could protect itself from European invaders. But the arrival of air power planes, bombers, and missiles changed everything. Suddenly, England wasn't as safe as it once was. The 360-degree access to the ocean was no longer enough to keep England secure, and the US overtook it as the dominant world power. So, what does this all mean? The most important questions in the world are, can you feed your people? Can you be invaded? And can you trade? These questions are determined by the land beneath your feet. And for the US, its geography has given it an unshakable position of power. Now, as we ask if America is in decline, it's important to remember that geography doesn't change quickly. The land beneath a country is the ultimate factor in determining its rise and fall. And that's why the United States is unlikely to collapse, no matter what happens. Its geographic advantages are locked in. This video is brought to you by Farmland LP, a company focused on transforming conventional farmland into organic, regenerative farming operations. Since 2009, they've been creating long-term value for investors by turning farmland into a sustainable asset that provides food and restores ecosystems. Farmland LP believes in the importance of land, and it's helping to ensure that land continues to work for the people who need it most. Take a look at the potential for farmland investment, a real asset that keeps producing value, even as the world changes around us.